on, y'all.
Hey everybody, it's Andy Kushner, host of The Wedding Biz, and this is another episode of The Next Level, in which I have a guest co-host with myself, and we talk about the most recent interview of the week and pick out a couple different highlights that we talk about in a way that will give you tactics and tips to bring your own business to the next level. And I want to first mention that last week's interview was on Natasha Miller, founder and CEO of Entire Productions out of San Francisco. And she had an extremely challenging upbringing and yet overcame it to build a really successful company. And my guest co-host was a wonderful planner and designer also out of San Francisco named Shannon Leahy of Shannon Leahy Events, who I'm going to be interviewing later this year. So be sure to check out last week's if you missed it. So today's guest co-host, I'm so excited is making a return appearance with me on this show, is Julie Sabatino, founder of The Stylish Bride. And we had a great conversation. I actually interviewed Julie for The Wedding Biz, and it was released August 13th of last year. And trust me, Julie is an innovator, having created her own one-of-a-kind business in the wedding industry. So check it out, and welcome, Julie. Thanks for joining me again.
Thank you so much for having me. I love being here.
Yeah. So we're here to discuss my interview released 2 days ago of Laurie Arons, a wonderful, wonderful planner, designer. Laurie has been featured in numerous magazine publications and was listed in Vogue, Harper Bazaar, and also Martha Stewart Weddings as one of the top planners worldwide. Her clients include trendsetters like Sofia Coppola and Vanessa Getty and Christy Turlington, and prominent business moguls like Gary Friedman, Frank Caulfield, and Eddie DeBartolo. Laurie also created and runs a very successful wedding planner masterclass, which just took place in March. So you have plenty of time to register for this popular seminar next year. So Julie, in terms of kind of the highlights of the interview, I thought one of them that really grabbed my attention was when she talked about wanting to jump to a high-end level really quickly. You know, and of course, most people recommend against doing that. You know, first, make your mark locally, but she really wanted to jump. And she said, if you remember, she didn't have much business or relationships. And so she created this incredible collateral material with business cards and marketing material, and then researched and made a list of who she wanted to meet in the Luxe market. And she started with Paula LeDuc. I mean, that was a big move for first time. What did you think about that, about how she talked about that?
I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And I could actually relate to a lot of it in the way that I started my business. I've always felt like the branding and the image that you put out there, and back then the paper was so important because you didn't have websites and the things that we have today. I've always thought that that has to be so reflective of who you are and who you want to be. And it gives people a level of confidence, which is what she said. They were impressed. They loved meeting her, and they said, but the follow-up was amazing. And I used to do things like I would have a meeting with somebody that I really wanted to work with, and I'd send them a thank you note and a gift of something that we spoke about in our meeting together. And, I still have a lot of those relationships today. So, I thought it was great advice. And, even though everything is so electronic today, that's why I think handwritten notes and something really thoughtful is even more appreciated.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. And wow, the idea that you even sent a gift somehow related to the meeting, the conversation, I might have to steal that from you.
Yeah.
That's a good one. And, I also send, I had 2 meetings yesterday, and first thing I did last night before I went to bed was I took out some really nice stationery and I hand wrote a card to each person and said something personal in each one. So I totally agree with you. And I mean, how often do we receive something like that in the mail? And when I do, I mean, part of me is thinking, okay, that was a tactic. But on the other hand, I loved it. I mean, I'm moved by it.
When it's authentic, you can tell when it's authentic. And that's what she said. She said it.
That's a really good point. Yes, the way she writes it. And, I also caught that in terms of how does she cold call people in the industry. She mentioned, I mean, look, this may be obvious to us, but I think to bring it up, she said she realized that toward the end of the week, people are really getting frantic. And so she would always reach out for these cold calls on Monday and Tuesdays to try to schedule meetings with them. And I thought that was a really good point. It's funny, there are certain people in the industry when I don't know if I want to say cold calling, but certain kinds of calls I purposely only do on Mondays or Tuesday mornings, and I never do things in the mid-afternoon. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's so interesting because I read an article one time that I've always kind of taken to heart. When you want to reach someone, you do it on Tuesday afternoon in like one of my entrepreneurial books. Yeah. I mean, and who knows? I think that, people are busy all the time now, but, that Tuesday, for whatever reason, I guess Monday's the catch up day from the weekend and you're slammed. And then, Tuesday you ease in and Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are a sprint. So who knows? But I think that it's interesting too, because although she didn't get into it in her interview, it was how persistent you are and how you do that persistence, because people are so busy and inundated with information right now, really makes a big difference. Like I've had people just kind of come at me a lot, like calling, emailing, texting, like what's going on? And that turns me off. But if it's a thoughtful, like, hey, just following up, want to check in, that's something that I can recognize. And I know that I haven't responded. And so, I would be interested in your follow-up interview whenever you do to find out like a little bit more in depth how that worked.
Yeah. Well, and when you said that, you're making me think. I had interviewed, it was Phil Van Nostrum, the photographer, and he talked a lot about how he follows up and also just how he stays in touch with people. And he mentioned, because like you say, I mean, if people are just kind of hounding you, I know that, we can all get anxious about that. Like, hey, what's the answer? How are things going? But yeah, there's different ways to do it. And Phil was talking about how he finds these touch points. So, for example, if he is, let's say that he just saw a movie, for example, and there was some, it was about, there was a lot of decor or something beautiful, he'll mention that, he'll write to someone and say, hey, I was thinking of you when I saw this movie because the decor in this big movie reminded me of the last party I did with you. Like, he'll find ways to stay in touch. So, but I'm going to move on to the next topic, but that was great. Another thing that she said was that when she gets inquiries, she personally contacts every single bride or person in the couple herself and schedules a call, because she says she has no idea who's on the other end. In other words, it could be something really big for her. And it made me think about my interview of Robert Fountain, because he really talked heavily about this. Robert was saying that, he has a large company, a lot going on. He has a big staff. Certainly there are capable people of answering the phone. But he said he learned his lesson when one particular day he picked up the phone and it ended up being what became one of his biggest clients and a legacy client. And he feels that that particular client, the party he did, is what broke his career in the Bay Area, San Francisco. And he wondered if he had not picked up the phone, sure, he's got good people, but would it have gone the same? And that's what I thought when Laurie said that.
Oh, it's so interesting too. I still do the same thing. And, it's funny because if I ever, take a vacation with my family or it's a weekend or whatever, and I get a call, I always respond, because brides want to talk to you then. They don't want to wait a week. They don't want to get a call back in 2 days. There is, a sense of urgency, and it's almost a test on how are you going to perform and service. And of course, I think, you have to put up boundaries, and there are certain things that, you have to set the standard for, although I'm not great at doing that. But I think what I heard her saying was that not only does she take those calls and do all of them herself because she really loves to, but she's generous with her information. And I loved that. And because you had said to her, what about, all of the time that is spent on people that can't afford you? And she's like, well, I'm absolutely happy to refer them to other vendors that I know. And I loved that, because it's really true. I think that, there's enough business in this industry for everyone. We talk about that a lot, but it's almost like paying it forward, like good karma in a way. And, if you can't do it and it's not the right bride for you, they might have a friend and they might be like, God, this person just really helped me and I couldn't use her, but she's awesome. And when, that's how you build a reputation.
I want to mention that obviously we all want to get as much publicity as we can for our businesses in the wedding and events industry. Well, would you like help in doing so? OFD Consulting is an award-winning publicity agency specializing in the wedding and events industry. They have placed clients in a ton of popular online and print publications, including many of the most well-known brands. OFD Consulting also has a service dedicated entirely to B2B press. And that's if you want to elevate your brand reputation among peers through online mentions, guest articles, podcasts, and speaking engagements. And if you're a small business who just wants to get a sense of what's possible, check out the OFD Collective. It is a 3-tier membership with strong educational and coaching opportunities, along with ongoing press leads. Learn more by going to ofdconsulting.com. That's ofdconsulting.com. Yeah, I like your point about that. Sometimes with my business too, in the music, if there's something that what I have is I know is not going to be the right fit for any reason, I can certainly call some other company and get a commission off it or a referral fee. But in many cases, I'll do the same kind of thing depending on the situation. I'll just refer them out and say, hey, you just, go book it yourself. It's fine. And it comes back because people take care of you. And also, I was thinking about when we were talking about, how you contact everybody, for those of us listening who have larger companies, where it's really hard for ourselves, the founder, the owner, whatever position we're in, to be able to do that, there is a compromise. Like I was thinking about Cindy Novotny, and I don't remember if it was part 1 or part 2 of my interviews with her, but she was saying, and she's got a major company, and she's traveling all over the world. She's on the plane all the time in big demand. It was interesting. She said that she personally, when she sees an inquiry, she responds, via email as fast as she can from her. She does it, but she says in it, hey, so happy you contact. We're so excited, really appreciate it, and, when are you available? And she'll get the schedule of 2 or 3 people who work for her. And she'll say in the email, so-and-so or so-and-so will get back to you. Are you available? They're available Wednesday, 10 and 2 and Thursday all day and all of that. And then it just goes on. So that's kind of a compromise. So yeah, that was an interesting concept. And then another one, which I know is going to grab a lot of attention here, is that right now, as of today of this recording, she has over 43,000 Instagram followers. And I had asked her, how did she do that? How do you build such a following? Because that's an enviable number. And she said, and Julie, I know you know this person too, she said that Jose Villa, the incredible photographer, was her mentor about how to do this. And a couple points that I recall is that she said, Jose said, every single image has to be really clear and good. It's got to be curated. You really got to be careful with what you're putting out there. And just the way he does it is every single photo is major. And so that was one of the pieces of advice that he gave her.
No, it's fantastic advice. And I think that they have a lot of imagery to work with. And, as I'm listening to this, I'm like, oh my God, he's right. I know.
Right. I know. And, me too. I'm thinking, yeah.
And we try. And, I think that they both have absolutely stunning Instagram pages. And I think that a lot of event planners do, because you have a lot to work with. And then, but different businesses like my own, and I would imagine you, Andy, it's like how to make the subject matter really shine when you don't have professional photos all the time of course I do from the weddings that I do, but there's a whole other element to what I do that I struggle with how to present, the real side of it and also the polished side of it. So it is interesting. And, God, I look at some of these Instagram pages, including hers, and I'm like, this is just beautiful. It's goals, I guess it's like you just have to set it out there as a goal.
Well, and also, there's keeping a consistent branding message, both visually and with whatever words you might use. And I'm actually thinking while we're talking about this, I might bring on a social media specialist who knows a lot about weddings and events and on the show. But I'm also remembering that she said that Jose said, be sure to tag. We all talk about this, but really be sure to tag anyone who's connected to the event. And also, not only do the pictures have to be well curated, but also be generous, when you are tagging people. And Laurie was saying it really pays off. Like that piece of advice was a real big one for her. Another one, and this changed me when I heard her, was that, I already know about this. It's good to follow industry leaders, but rather than just liking, doing the heart on Instagram you got, comment. And not all the time, but really try to make an effort to comment, with a really well thought out comment, make it an interactive two-way tool. And I found that when I start to do that, I am seeing a little more action. I think there's something to that.
Oh, absolutely. And all of the things that I listen to say that that's the most important piece, because the algorithm, which I'm not even going to pretend I understand, recognizes who you're interacting with and shows you more of that. And so, I think that it's hard. And what I struggle with, and she is way better at it than I am, is not getting completely and totally sucked into it. I struggle with, the time and the mental capacity it takes to really be great at Instagram. And, she's certainly nailed it.
Yeah, she does. Oh, and I want to finish a thought that I just realized, in terms of commenting, well, what is the approach to comment? And it's to say, what is it that you like about the post and why? I mean, what and why? Not just some like, hey, that's beautiful. But, if you can say something a little deeper. She also talked about being your own person doing Instagram. Now, some of us, have PR, marketing, social media people. And her point was that as busy as she is, and Jose too, same thing, that they are doing their own posts so that people can really feel the authenticity of it. And she feels that eventually that does come out. People could kind of tell. And I can't do this, but she spends 2 hours a day, she said, on Instagram. 2 hours a day.
That is incredible. Oh my God. And I will tell you something, talking to a wedding social media expert that handles different brands, I think that one compromise, if you can't do that, because that's a huge undertaking. And, if you can't spend all of that time, you can go through, plan out what the posts are going to be and write your own captions. So you can approve all the posts and write what they are and then, not have to do all of the legwork, but that way you can make your voice sound authentic.
That's a really good idea, Julie. Yeah. And, before we wrap up, I want to mention, too, that Kiana Underwood of Tulipina is someone that I interviewed. I can't wait to put that one out. Probably within a month, I'll release it. But she has, you all ready for this? Over 300,000 Instagram followers, over 300,000. And she also talked a lot about some of the same stuff that Laurie said about every single photo and the whole thing. So, yeah, before we go, Julie, was there anything else that you wanted to say to wrap up?
I loved listening to this interview because I felt like I really got to know her as a person. And, I just thought that she was incredibly genuine and incredibly giving in her interview. And, I just really loved that. And I thought that it's something that a lot of industry people, whether they're starting out or have been in business a long time, they can learn something from it. And I just thought that was great.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank everyone for listening today. Be sure to check out the website and services, including the masterclass that Laurie Arons does. And you can find her at lauriearons.com. That's LAURIE. ARONS, lauriearons.com, and go to the show notes at theweddingbiz.com. You'll find it there. Also, her social media handles for Instagram is at Laurie Arons, and on Facebook, it's Laurie Arons Special Events. And also, I want to give a big shout out and a big thank you to Julie Sabatino, my guest co-host of The Stylish Bride, and you can find her at thestylishbride.com. And Julie, your handle is, I believe, at The Stylish Bride.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, very good. You got the same name with everything you do. That is a smart branding decision, and you were able to grab it.
Why, thank you.
Yeah. And again, I want to remind everyone, I really want to urge you to go listen to the interview I did with Julie, which was August 13th of last year. You'll get a lot of great ideas and information and education and inspiration from Julie. And Julie, I definitely want to have you come back, okay? For sure.
Thanks, Andy. I would love to. Thank you so much.
Okay. And hey, everyone, please be sure to follow us at Wedding Biz Show. See, I got a branding issue there. We couldn't get the Wedding Biz. So get at Wedding Biz Show, and we'll catch you all next week.